Hi there. My name is David Georgeson. I'm the Director of Development for the EverQuest franchise, and I'm here with some illustrious people, and I use that adjective exactly with its meaning. This is Joe Shupak, who is the Director for Artistic Development at SOE.
Hello, everybody.
This is Sebastian Strakowski, who is the EverQuest franchise art director, and Matt Case, who's the art lead for Free Realms. And we're here to talk today about Player Studio. And if you didn't catch that from the little logo at the front of the webcast, well, now you know. Basically what we're going to talk about is what we've done so far, the kind of responses that we've gotten, and talk a little bit about some of the do's and don'ts of when you want to submit something as a creator. And then in addition, tell you a little bit about the future of the project as we move forward and what we want to do for you to make it a better and better program as we go forward. So we'll start out just in general, how do you guys feel about Player Studio so far? We kind of launched it right before Christmas and then we had a break and that kind of threw our kilter off, but how's it going?
I'm really excited about Player Studio. It's incredible to see the response from our community. We really do have some of the best game communities out there, and people have really embraced it. They've been experimenting with 3D packages, and we've gotten a lot of very interesting items submitted. We have some in the marketplace already, but for me, it's really great to see people that are so dedicated to our games have a creative outlet where they can actually participate in impacting, what items are in that world and kind of put their own stamp on it. It's very, very cool.
Yeah, I think as developers, it's a whole other level for us to be interacting with the fans of the games. I mean, now, one thing is, before we would make games and they would just be consuming the media we're making, but now we're having this interactive conversation with them as they're submitting things and we're giving them feedback, and it's just really exciting. It's a whole other level for us to be engaging the community.
Yeah, certainly we've never done it before, right?
Yeah.
And Free Realms has actually had the most submissions of any game, right?
Is that
or no, actually I think EverQuest has the most, doesn't it?
EverQuest
But yours has been very active too.
Yeah.
Yes, it was not as many at first, but now we're really picking up with quite a few. And they're, like Sebastian said, just sending some feedback to a couple players that were really close on items. They turn around and adjust what was requested in there and resubmit it, and it's great. It's
At the beginning, we had, just in case those of you are not creators and you're watching this just curious, there's this website you go to and you download a bunch of information about what the process of how to make an item for a game, and then you go ahead and create it and you submit it. And that's where the real process starts. We look at it, it goes back and forth a couple times with feedback, so on and so forth, and it goes through finance and all that other stuff. But at the beginning, we weren't really giving creators a lot of feedback, and we've changed that somewhat now. So can you describe a little bit about what we're doing now?
As far as when I look at stuff for Free Realms, a lot of times if the item is really, really close, I can send it back and just put a quick note to say, you might want to change the location of where you're putting a logo or something on the shirt, because we have to modify it from human male, human female, pixie female.
Sure.
And so the body type is different, and you want to make sure logo is up here or something, as opposed to getting all messed up on the stomach or something.
Is that a commonality for all games? Because all of our games have lots of different races and stuff like that.
Right.
Is that an issue?
Well, I think because, like you said, this is the first time we've been doing this, we've definitely been learning some of the stumbling blocks that some of the players have been encountering. So we're getting better at giving more specific feedback and kind of anticipating what the players, what kind of feedback they're going to need and what kind of things they're doing. As for the different games, each game kind of has different technical requirements, so we're also sort of getting better at refining that so that players can get that feedback as well. So I think that's worked out well.
We've had a lot of submissions, right?
Oh,
Yeah, we've had a lot of submissions.
Yes.
So we have hundreds and hundreds of submissions,
Yeah.
and we've been going back and forth. Now, players are not seeing very many items in the marketplace yet. Why?
Well, we've actually been holding back a little bit, and like you said earlier, we kind of just started this right before Christmas, and so we've gone on break and kind of regrouping now and seeing the responses that we've been getting on Player Studio and kind of figuring out, okay, how can we get this out to the community quicker now? And so
what's our intent? What do we want to do?
Well, ideally we want to be able to allow players to, we want to streamline that process so they can get their content in the game quicker. I mean, like I was saying earlier, we are definitely spending a lot more time one-on-one with everybody, giving them very precise feedback. So we want to make sure that we're enabling people to get their items into the marketplace. But as this gets even more popular, we're already exploring mechanisms of finding ways to allow players to get this stuff in faster. Because right now I think it's getting in, but it's a matter of a couple of weeks or
like the financial check
exactly,
back and forth and getting the W-9s filled out and all that other stuff is taking a long
just
time.
The little
right now.
little details like that we want to streamline. So we're excited about that. I'm excited about having a process set up where it's a little more exposed to the community as well.
And we definitely have a artistic bar that is set for each game, and sometimes it'll take somebody a couple attempts to get something up to the art quality level that it's going to match, or not necessarily match, but be artistic competitive with what some of the other folks who have done items in the marketplace right now are. Because we're dealing with all different skill levels,
right.
And certainly Player Studio gives you an opportunity, no matter what your skill level, because if you're not into 3D, you can paint cool texture on a cloak. You can do a T-shirt for free roams.
Yeah.
If you're more adept at 3D, you can make any kind of imaginable housing item or EQ weapon. So it has a little bit of something for everybody. So that's one of the things that are exciting.
I'm going to jump ahead a little bit because we were going to talk about future stuff at the end, but it's appropriate. So Sebastian, Joe, and I just got out of a meeting where we were talking about this forum idea, where we were talking about letting the players talk to each other more. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. We have a forums location now. We're going to be adding I don't think there's a link to it currently on the page. We're going to be adding that soon. But we see some participation going on that right now. And we're going to make forums a much more integral part of the Player Studio experience for contributors. And that's something that's coming very soon. We want people to be able to discuss with their peers some of the things they created, get tips and feedback from each other, and have a location where some of the devs, when we see a lot of common mistakes, or we can give some helpful tips, we can make some posts there that will be useful to everybody creating that particular class of item. But I think the forums are going to be a very big part going forward for players to discuss, the community of creators to discuss what each of them are building.
And that's the key right there.
Yeah.
The community of creators will have a home where they can talk to each other and essentially help new submitters become better at their craft.
Right.
I think we put a lot of attention initially on the submission process on our end, which was the backbone for all this. But now we can focus on what's the community-facing end and engage the community and get that so that they're the ones helping give each other feedback. And as I said before, I mean, we're kind of figuring out what the common mistakes are. So we want to be able to create a repository for all this information, and it's going to be a living document. I mean, we're going to keep updating it. The community will continue to update it. It's a great way to engage the community. So it's not just you submit something and you may have to wait a couple of days before we get back to you. The idea is that now other people could ideally be giving you feedback that have already submitted items themselves and gone through the same process.
Right. Yeah. So the intent, of course, is to let the community gel and then give them lots of feedback so they can get better and better and better at it so that they can sell more stuff and everybody's happy, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we're definitely going to be adding some functionality to the forums as they exist now to make that more conducive and easier for people to give feedback to each other.
Well, that's cool. So I'll skip around a little bit more. Do you want to run those pictures and they can kind of see the stuff while we talk about it? What are some of the coolest items that we have in the system right now, whether they're on the marketplace or not?
Do you want to talk about some of the stuff you've seen that we're looking at on Free Realms right now?
This is a T-shirt that someone had submitted, and they had submitted it in several different colors, and what we did was actually create it so it was tintable like many of our other wearables in the game.
Cool.
So now when a player buys this, they can pick what color they want that shirt to be.
Nice.
So
That's cool.
and another item we have is this gazebo, which is a nice large housing item.
Very cool.
Yeah, that turned
and-
out really nice.
Yeah, it looks really good. We've had given some feedback to the artist that did this, and she's excited to do some more items for the housing.
Now
items.
that's an interesting bit right there, because one of the things that's cool about these about this is that the active creators, they tend to be really prolific. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
we've seen that on specifically even on EQ. There's a lot of items that are submitted by this one user, and we were just talking about this beforehand. Of we've got all these tiling items that they're actually they look great, but we were thinking about suggesting that people submit an item first before making a ton of variations of that, just to see if we can get that through the system. Although, like I said, that actually became a pretty successful set of objects for Player Studio.
And that makes sense.
We're definitely seeing people create multiple items.
Yeah.
It's very common. It's probably less common for just get one item from somebody.
exactly.
More often we get multiple items from
And that's kind of
from a
cool,
participant.
Yeah.
Very
because
cool.
as this thing grows and everything like that, these creators will eventually end up with like a little library of items that they've added to the game, and they can become famous for being one of those people. That's our goal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We want to
Right.
get to the point where they're not only it's fame and fortune, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
their
people
portfolio.
and people will be pursuing them on the forums to say, hey, man, give me some tips on how you did this, because
We already, in all our games right now, when you buy an item that's been created by a player, there's a tag on it that tells you who the player created it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true in Free Realms also.
The player can make doesn't have to be their in-game player name. They can make their
Right.
own creator name.
Right.
And then we label all the items with the tiny icon in the corner, identifying it as a Player Studio created item.
Well, I've seen some stuff that's really great. I really like that Gypsy Wagon. I know it's not out yet, but it's really cool.
Oh, yeah.
That ornate chest in EQ2 is better than any chest we put in the game. And there's a lot of stuff that we're doing, and the players are going to be phenomenal at this. So one of the first things we want to do is make sure that they're better, that they can get better easily. And you have a list of things that you wanted to talk about for
Sure,
like
yeah.
do's and don'ts.
Yeah, a couple of the things, now that we've seen a lot of submissions, one thing we want to emphasize is when you're submitting something for Player Studio, make sure it's completely your own creation. It's fine to take inspiration from other things, but we do find that a lot of people will get something from the internet that we can identify and apply it to their item. So we want to encourage you to make sure that you're creating your own version of something. Also, we're going to be posting some additional rule clarifications probably in the next week or so on the forums. We're going to ask people to only submit one version of an item, because it's also very common for, especially with shirts or cloaks, to have people submit 10, 15 different versions of that same cloak in a
Yeah, I saw
variety
like
of
25
colors.
versions of a colored wall.
Yeah. So what we want to do in all these titles is just have you do it in the colors that you like best. And if the implementation team decides to make some color variants, you still get credit for creating that item. But in Free Realms especially, I think, has seen a lot of multiple color variation items. And then another update we're going to be adding is we're going to ask people not to use text or screenshots. EverQuest 2, it's a fantasy universe. We don't want to see English text, and if you use any of the in-game fonts, then we have to kind of figure out, make sure you're not saying anything funky.
Plus, our
there.
games are international.
Right.
So we don't, the people playing in Russia don't know what any.
Right.
Yeah.
So we want people to avoid using text, and to also avoid just taking iconography from our games and using it as a piece of clip art. It's fine to create your own inspired version of maybe some kind of iconography from Free Realms or EverQuest 2, but it should be quite a different artistic interpretation of it, not just a cut and paste.
Rotoscope that.
Yeah.
screenshot.
I think we had a few other technical things on there, but we'll be updating
Tentacle?
the technical.
Oh,
Yeah.
like tentacle
a few
things.
well,
Is it a free roams?
The technical requirements
yeah.
we have in here now. One thing we've gotten in the habit of saying polys instead of faces, and that caused some confusion. And so again, like I said, there's some things that we've been learning also how to better convey our technical requirements to the submitters. So. But we'll update the website. And
Yeah, I think we're going to universally call out things in triangles rather than use
Yeah.
faces and polygons, because polygons can be four-sided.
yeah, exactly.
Cool. Is there anything else? Because
let's
we
see.
are over time.
Sure.
After I bragged about the fact I never go over time.
Well, yeah, I mean the color thing we went over, that one especially, I can see why that comes up, because on Free Realms especially we do so many different color variations, but we can do that on our end. Paying attention to the backside of your object, that happens sometimes where creators can accidentally create faces on the inside of an object, and that actually increases the poly count. So sometimes your item might be over poly count, and it might be just as simple as removing those faces on the back of the model or on the inside. So that's something to look out for.
And polygons that are no more than 4 sides. So
Yeah,
either 3
yeah.
or 4 side polygons.
Yeah,
So-
that can cause trouble sometimes, especially for animations, although I guess we're not doing that with any items right now. I mean, that's kind of the bulk of the main things that we are going to be updating for the new technical requirements.
Yeah, I guess also paying attention to coming up with a cool item name too when you submit it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of people put very temporary looking names in there, so use your imagination, come up with something that's really cool.
Yes.
Right?
For your
Because a
name.
cool name will actually help your
Cool
item
name will
sell.
help.
Yes.
yeah.
A little blurb, a little bio blurb, a little bit, a little text that goes with it, all that stuff. That all helps. It's your store. Package it as well as you can.
I think I would like to also mention EverQuest 2. We're going to be adding some new items fairly shortly there. So we are also working on what additional classifications of items that we can add. So
Yeah.
this is not a static set of items. This is going to
Like,
grow.
we're still
over
working on
time.
house deeds. We're still working on getting more and more categories open for other people. There's a lot of stuff that's still in progress. None of that has been forgotten, even though we did break for Christmas and we're retooling back up again. We're back into it full speed. And in fact, one of the things that I wanted to mention specifically, because this is a big deal for those of you who are creators out there, we're dedicating resources like full time to Player Studio on EverQuest 2 and EverQuest. In fact, Sebastian is heading that up, and then we have the guy that used to be the lead character artist on EQ2 is actually moving in and working with Sebastian full time on the art assets and stuff that are being submitted, and then helping with coaching and telling people what's going on and so on and so forth. We're very committed to this. We want this to work really well, and we want you guys to succeed. So that's where we are now. Does anybody have anything to add?
Oh, well, just Dave Brown has been doing a lot of the interactions with people for EQ2, so they'll probably be very familiar with some of his feedback already. So I'm really excited to have us make that a higher priority now for us.
It's just always interesting going in there every week and seeing what new items have been created. That's a real treat.
Yeah.
Real treat for us to
Yeah, I like going to
see
the
some
player
of the cool
submission
stuff.
site all the time. Matt?
I really don't have anything.
No, that's fair.
I'm
That's
sorry.
So we'll avoid the 2,000 poly cookies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, just
Definitely.
because the
Yeah.
limit is 2,000 doesn't mean your item has to be 2,000. That's a big tip.
Yeah, I think the way I think of it is like in terms of the scale. If it's going to be a small item, it doesn't have to be as high poly. You know, make it relative to the amount of polys that something at that size would be.
I've heard stories of games that crashed because of the 20,000 poly manhole cover in the middle of the city. But anyway, so that kind of wraps it up for us today. We really appreciate you coming and listening to this and watching us. We greatly appreciate you participating in the Player Studio system. We think it's really, really fun that players are creating stuff and putting it into the MMOs, and other players are able to get that for themselves. You're putting your own stamp on this stuff. It's It changes the way that these virtual worlds are. They're no longer not changing at all. You're affecting change, and things will get better and better as we go forward. More and more capabilities, more and more options for you as we go. And, well, we can't wait. So thanks. We really appreciate your time. Talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Sony.